Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present. It's really a great pleasure to be with here. Okay, so actually, my presentation is kind of a follow up with Professor Vinci's presentation. So basically, during her presentation, she mentioned some key points. Look, I kind of feel like I skipped the introduction because she already elucidated the main importance of semiconductor industry, particularly how the TSMC plays an important role in the particularly the semiconductor supply chain and all. So I don't want to continue with I don't want to repeat the same thing. So I'll just continue with 2 points. When she mentioned that initially she mentioned that because of the AI demand, like TSMC plays an important role because it is only few countries in the world could produce most advanced chips. Right now, it's like 3 nanometer, and in future 2 nanometer. So only TSMC and Samsung, these two countries, kind of dominating the entire supply chain, and almost like 92% of the advanced chips is actually manufactured by TSMC. So the problem we can see that during a presentation she mentioned the future of semiconductor relies on two factors, which is she mentioned that environmental issues and geopolitical issues. So she already mentioned the environmental issues. So I kind of follow up from the geopolitical aspect. So when we see this, we could see that how vulnerable TSMC, uh, like Taiwan, have this tremendous development through this semiconductor industry. But that kind of it's more like a double-edged sword because one time, on the one hand, it kind of gave more strategic importance for the Taiwan island, but on the other hand, it also created a vulnerability. So we already know that how important it is in the location, in aspect of the geostrategic location, so that what my my study is trying to propose is that Taiwan can look behind the traditional partners and then try to look more into creating new partner or else strengthening the relationship with already existing partner. So before moving on to the next slide, I'll just explain the briefly explain. So when we see in the last few years, particularly last 5 years, there is a tremendous strong like strengthening of relationship between Taiwan and Southeast Asian country and also particularly with India. Why? Is because like Taiwan introduced the new southbound policy, which mainly focus on not only relying on its traditional allies, but also try to diversify their geopolitical allies with particularly India plays an important role in that national policies. So my topic, I kind of give the brief introduction about the geopolitical aspect. So from here, what I'm trying to present is that how this Taiwan semiconductor industry could give prospect lessons for India's semiconductor industry. Because in December 2021, India started to realize how important the semiconductor industry for Indian economy, because most of the almost entire chip is produced by outside and India is actually importing that. So that during the mainly two issues, the COVID pandemic and then the US China tech competition kind of created a space for a space to think how important it is for the economy of India. So that they started to implement the policies, and they established this India semiconductor missions to start producing chips in there. And when we see, like the first question comes to our mind is that, so what is the position of India in the semiconductor value chain? Do they produce the chips? Like I said, they don't. Then what is the actual position in the semiconductor industry? Because when we talk about semiconductor industry, we kind of know about Taiwan, Japan, Korea, China, US. But what about India? So actually, if we see, India is actually playing an important role in the when it comes to the design of chip. Almost 20% of the semiconductor chips is actually designed in India. And most of the US designing company, they have a presence in India. So that is the most important thing. But then India realized that design alone would not give strategic importance to India. So they started to make policies to incorporate India into the manufacturing aspect as well. So that is kind of a brief introduction to the story, why India want to take a position in this value chain. So from this, so my paper particularly focused on how Taiwan throughout the history uh, evolved in this semiconductor industry. So that from my study, this study is actually fully qualitative and case study. So I don't have much data in here. I just try to see the continuation evolution throughout the history. So first thing that India can learn from Taiwan is that when Indians in Indian strategic circle, when they see how the Taiwan evolved through this from the agriculture sector to the advanced sector. There are certain key factors that could play important role for India. It could provide a lesson for India. First thing is that government plays the venture as capitalist, because sometimes when it comes to the economy, market plays an important role. That's we know about in the IP, international political economy aspect. But when it comes to Taiwan, Taiwan did a really great job. Taiwan government during 1970s, when they started to when they started to develop from the agriculture to advanced technology, they specifically chose semiconductor industry, and then they government played an important role, and they established a particular unit for overreaching all this semiconductor in establishing semiconductor industry and facilitating between the companies and all. So the Ministry of Economic Affairs implemented a strategic approach to help the Taiwanese company. So they basically try to provide facilitate companies, foreign companies, and also like how to transfer technology to Taiwan soil. So there's a first strategy that Taiwan implemented. First one is reverse brain drain, and then focus on manufacturing and strategic partnership, and then government support. These are the four main strategy that Taiwan started when they initiated this, try to develop the semiconductor industry. So reverse brain drain, the Taiwan realized that the many of the Taiwanese engineers working in US, they can incentivize them to come back, bring back to the land, and then establish the semiconductor industry. That kind of create a big revolution for the next point, which is focusing on the manufacturing sector. So that what happened in many of us know about in the history. So the important player in this aspect is Maurice Chong. He was the chairman of the TSMC, and he is the founding father of the independent foundry model. So what he basically did is that during that time, many companies are focusing on IDM, integrated device manufacturing. So he just decided that he kind of proposed a novel model of pure foundry model. That means that the company will not design anything and will not sell the chip under the name. So it's basically manufactured for someone else. So that kind of a model create a big revolution in the semiconductor industry. Why is so? Because of that, many of the company, they don't have to focus on the very capital expensive industry on producing microchips, semiconductors. So they focus mainly on designing, so that it kind of create a space for more innovation. So that during that time, many fabless company arose. And there was like a big lesson for India, because India already have a stronghold in the design aspect, so that then they wanted to focus on manufacturing as well. They could learn this how they can make use of the already Indian engineers working in TSMC or working in some other semiconductor industry, and then bring them back to the soil and then focus on manufacturing, and which India already have strong design capabilities, so they can focus on creating semiconductor chips. And also one other thing is that when Taiwan started, they want to focus on creating more advanced chips, but India can focus more on what is needed in the domestic market, and also India can focus more on how it can create a global level participate in the value chain and then create the world standard chips, instead of focusing too much on upgrading into the 3 nanometer, 2 nanometer. They can stick with 28 nanometer and 14 nanometer and focus on vertically focus on that. That is a good lesson they can learn. And also the important fourth point is the government support, which India is already in the right track to support the semiconductor industry. They are providing a lot of incentive, and they initiated the Indian Semiconductor Mission and incentivize the private companies to partnership with other companies, and then they provide a lot of incentive that is already in a good track. And yeah, this one I already mentioned, and this how important TSMC professor mentioned before. So I just skip this. So but when we see that, so what? So is it easy to make semiconductor in anywhere? It is really not, because making a semiconductor, it really involves a lot of problems. But one of the big problem that India faces is the infrastructure challenges, because semiconductor need mainly power and water, but India is already having a lot of domestic issues facing this problem. So they need to focus on that. And then also but since it's already in the right track in future, but making a semiconductor industry in the soil, it takes some years. It just doesn't work in 5 years. Within 5 years, it takes at least minimum 10 years to set up everything, so that India can focus on long term investment and long term strategy, how to sustain that, not just like one time capital investment and then leave the rest to outside. No, the government should, throughout the process, they should support the industry, and they have to take a more proactive roles into that. And also they can focus on the design strength, which India is already good with. So finally, what my conclusion I would like to say is that strategic partnership is the most important thing that India can have. So instead of repeating the same manufacturing supply chain, they can like partnership with Taiwan and some other partner who already had matured nodes and legacy chips, so that they can learn from that. They can partnership with others. So India have a like self sufficiency plan and everything. Self sufficiency doesn't mean that we have to do everything alone. Have to do everything like isolated and do everything alone. Partnership matters the most. And then the three things that India can focus is that build on the design excellence, which they already have strong hold in, and then the strong strategic partnership and long-term vision. Like normally we walk first and then run. So if you want to fly, you should start from the basic. You cannot just jump directly. So it's like a step-by-step process. Need to have a long, decade-long commitment, and then policy stability. That's one of the biggest challenge for India, because when Taiwan started this journey, they have a solid central power, but India is like a democracy power, but government is doing a good job in continuing this. So these are the three things that India can focus on. And thank you so much for, and I really welcome more questions from you. Thank you.